Hello everyone. I did not like the original video I had recorded of this, and so this is my second take at this. This video is about seeing how a low-end spec works on NGS. By low-end, the lowest it can go, namely integrated graphics on an AMD APU off a DeskMiniX300. What that is simple. You pay $160, maybe $180, and you get everything that you need with the exception of a CPU, memory, and storage towards a system. The only problem with it is that you can't have a discrete graphics solution. And so you have to get an APU or CPU with integrated graphics. So I have a 3400G that runs on 4 cores and 8 threads, and that CPU also has an AMD Radeon Vega graphics processor. 2 gigabytes of system RAM are allocated for its frame buffer. I have 16 gigabytes with the lousiest cache latency known to man. And so let's get started. I'm running NGS at 1080p and lowest settings, save for anti-aliasing. 93% GPU usage. It is within the 2 gigabyte limit. 8 gigs of RAM. So the deception is there. The cocoons are the place in NGS that demand the least on your hardware. So it's at 82% GPU usage, but I set an FPS limit to 60 because when your CPU and GPU are in the same place, being cooled by only a single cooler, that cooler needs to work harder in order to be able to dissipate that heat, especially when you're playing games. So I have a 33.9 watt power consumption, but that is enough to bring a CPU to 64C. Now, these next 3 screenshots are interesting because it shows the issues that iGPUs struggle. Traditional system is that you have a CPU and a GPU that are separate, which mean that you have GPUs with their own internal memory, like 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, 24 gigabytes if you have a 4090. But then you have your system RAM on the other side of things. So your system RAM is more linked to your CPU, while your GPU has its own dedicated memory. Not in this instance. In this instance, the CPU and the GPU are together, while the system RAM is used for both, the frame buffer for the game and for writing the game to memory. So because it uses memory bandwidth for it, it requires time for your frame rate to normalize. So I have 45 frames per second in this area, but then when I get to the island, I have 62. If I turn around, turn the screen, tilt the screen 180 degrees, I'm at 48. And so anyone seeing this knows that when you have a texture in your face, it's more demanding to your performance than having textures a mile away. I mean, that's the whole idea of seeing crappy looking textures from miles away and giving an illusion of approaching a target or moving away from it is part of how bump mapping works. So these three screenshots and the frame rate really are an indicator of having to actually wait for frame rates to normalize. So eventually I went to Central City, and I've said before, if you want the highest demand on your system, just go to Central City, to the most populated block that you can find, give yourself maximum settings, and then just stand around all the people, all the other player characters. You will literally use a ton of resources. You will use the most resources that the game has to offer or whatnot. In fact, no, I'll take that back. Never mind the game. You will use the most amount of resources the system itself can offer up, because the game doesn't care. It will just do what it's supposed to do and go by the settings you put. However, if you lower your settings to minimum and even remove anti-aliasing, which will make the game look ugly, you get 56 and 60 frames per second in the most populated lobby ever. So it's not bad. This game is optimized. You could take a system without discrete video card and still get 60 frames per second at 1080p, like the screenshots show. But what you really, really want when you're making systems like these is just to have access and stability to gaming. So normally, if you have a system that is the highest end, you don't want your mini system to be of the highest end too. Otherwise, you won't use your high-end system. So this was a system that I built because I decided that I was going to spend a lot of time, thanks to work and other things like that, in static locations, like hotels, during vacation, over at my mother's house, or a friend's house, or whatnot. And so I built this system and took a page out of the console gamer's handbook of just find a TV nearby and connect your system to it. And that's actually what I did. I did not want to use a laptop, because you pay a ton of money for a laptop just so that you sit down and use it, to find that 3 hours later you need to plug it in somewhere, and the thermals don't really help a laptop very much. And most of us can do most of our work on an iPad or a tablet. And so with smartphones covering one end of things, tablets covering another end of things, laptops outside of heavy gaming don't have much you can do on them that isn't cost effective. So I made this thing, and it fits in the palm of my hand, and I've been happy with it. It's been really, really valuable for me. Sure, I have a 12900K paired with an RTX 4090, but the fact I can take this with me everywhere just shows off the value the system itself has. It's not always about the most powerful system. The most powerful system has its place, but a system like this one allows me to get a ton of work done that I would not be able to do on the other system. And the best part is that it allows me to work at low wattage too. I can connect this thing to solar panels, and I can actually run the system off it. Anyhow, it truly is amazing that one can play NGS. If 60 frames per second at the lowest settings without anti-aliasing doesn't prove a point on integrated graphics, I don't know what will. Now, just remember, just because your processor has a TDP of 65 watts does not mean it won't reach 74 or 80 or 100C. You have to be careful. But that being said, if you want to make a nice heat box that won't take 750 to 1500 watts of power every hour, you can actually use a small PC to do that for around 50 watts an hour, maybe 70 watts an hour. So that's something to consider. Anyway, good luck and have fun.